各位线上的朋友，大家好。今天呢，我们热门基金会客室邀请到一位重量级的贵宾，他呢就是我们台湾国人持有金额最高，而且呢在我们基富通平台上销量跟存量也都是双冠王的安联收益成长基金的经理人 Justin Cass 来到我们的现场。Welcome, Justin.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Justin Cass. I'm the CIO of the Income and Growth Strategies team, and I'm honored to be here. So thank you for having me.
好，那很高兴呢 ，Justin 能够在百忙之中来到我们台湾参加我们今天的专访哦。那一开始呢，我们会先用一些快问快答以及2选1的题目来问一下 Justin， 顺便呢也让线上的朋友快速的认识一下我们经理人，以及呢我们为什么安联收益成长基金在台湾在我们平台上可以这么的热门。那接着呢，我们也会针对大家最想知道的问题，包括了市场走向，以及呢我们基金操作的策略来请教我们经理人。So, well, once again, Justin, welcome to Taiwan.
Thank you.
And I know that every year you come to Taipei, come to Taiwan, and share your views with our investors, right? So, the first question for you is that could you share 3 impressions that you have of Taiwan and tell us why?
Yeah. Well, Taiwan's my biggest market. So the first thing that comes to mind when I think of Taiwan is I think of income and growth.
Yep.
So that's number one.
Yep.
I've been here for many years. Like you said, I've traveled, so I've met great people. So I always think about great people in Taiwan.
Yep.
And then the last thing is I really like the food. So great people, great food,
Yeah.
and of course, income and growth.
Yeah. Have you tried the bubble tea this time?
Yes, boba tea and fried chicken. Yes.
I love that as well. Yeah, I'll get you one later.
Thank you.
All right, the next question. As you said, you manage such a large portfolio, right? And it must require a lot of energy, a lot of time. So tell us, what are your leisure activities? What would you like to do when you are not working? And how do you relieve the stress from such a high pressure work?
Yeah, so it's a great question. We are in global markets, and we do manage money for clients all around the world. So it is very demanding as far as time. I start my day at 4 a.m. in San Diego, and oftentimes we do calls with Asia as late as 6 or 7 p.m. at night. So in order to relieve stress, my favorite activity is surfing, which I do live in California, I do live in San Diego, so on the weekends or in the evening when I have time, I enjoy surfing. And then I need yoga also. So yoga is one of my favorite activities to do besides surfing. And that's a great way for me to, keep my body limber and relieve stress.
That's why you stay fit. And also in Taipei, around Taipei, we have some really nice beaches where you can go surfing there. I'll recommend some of the places for you later as well.
Hopefully some clients can take me surfing one day. Maybe we can do it as a great activity.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Yeah. All right, one final question for you. If you weren't a fund manager, what would you be doing now?
I would love to be a yoga instructor, believe it or not. So when I think of income and growth and money management, it's always in the best interest of clients and client goals and client needs. And so when I think of yoga also and being an instructor, there's also goals and needs that are met by those students. So I love yoga as an activity, and I think that's something that aligns with my ability to manage portfolios.
Well, that sounds quite interesting. Maybe I can learn something from you because I don't know how to do yoga. 好，那接下来呢，我们就有一些小小的测试要来问一下我们的 Justin 了。So, Justin, we also prepare some quizzes for you. So, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So, when you enter this office, did you notice there's an animal that's kind of like everywhere in the background?
Yes.
So, my question is, FundRich, as the largest online fund trading platform in Taiwan, we have a mascot. Is that A, rooster, or B, a pig? Which one? Take a pick here.
Rooster.
Rooster? Yes, exactly. Yeah,
Rooster.
because it's actually everywhere in the background.
And it's everywhere around, yes.
Yeah. And you know why? It's because FundRich's Chinese name is Jifu Tong. And the pronunciation of Ji is exactly the same as rooster in Chinese. And that's why we choose rooster as our mascot. All right. So that's easy for you. So the next one, a bit difficult for you. You know that Allianz Income and Growth Fund is very, very popular in Taiwan. So do you know how many cumulative views it has on our FundRich platform? A, 500,000 views, or B, 10 million views? Take a pick. Which one?
Is it A or B?
Yeah.
B.
Yes,
10 million views.
Of course, we go for the highest
number.
Yes, exactly. See, that shows how popular your fund is here in Taipei. So also for your information, the second most viewed fund on the platform, it only has about 60 or 70% of your view count. See, you are very popular here in Taiwan.
That's great to hear. Thank you for that, for everyone who's viewed the product.
Yeah, great. And the next one. So, on the FundRich platform, which share class of the Allianz Income and Growth Fund has the highest sales and holdings? So, once again, make a guess. A, the AM Stable Monthly Income Share Class in US dollar, or B, the AT Accumulation Share Class in US dollar. Which one? Make a pick.
I know everybody likes income and they love monthly income, so I'm going to go with A, the Monthly Distributing Share Class.
See, these questions are too easy for you. Yes, the answer is A. Yeah, and also for your information, our Stable Monthly Income Share Class accounts for 50% of the sales and holdings. And that shows what Taiwan investors expect from you and also from the fund. All right. 好，那藉由刚才呢，一些问题还有测验，我相信大家应该都更认识我们经理人 Justin 了。那同时呢，也更了解为什么我们安联收益成长基金会在台湾如此受到欢迎。在这里呢，我们统整了很多的问题，我们也在里头挑出了一些重点的问题来一一请教我们的经理人。My first question is the U.S. presidential election.
Yep.
All right. This election was surrounded by a lot of, I would say, controversies and issues like the Trump shooting incident and also the Democrats changing their candidate at the last minute. And also with the polling numbers showing that it was a very tight race. So now the results are finalized, right?
Yes.
So what is your thoughts on the election outcome and also your post-election market outlook? And also under the new administrations, which industries are likely to benefit? What is your take on that?
Those are all great questions, so thank you for that. So if we think about the presidential election and what occurred in the presidential election, there's a couple things to keep in mind. And with a new administration comes new policies. And the market is very quick to adapt to that. So when we talk about what are we doing to the portfolio, it's what did we do to the portfolio, and those changes occurred as soon as there was certainty. So if you think about pro-cyclical or pro-Trump industries, there would be Bitcoin, there would be financials, there would be industrials, and there would be US-centric companies. So those were the immediate outperformers. The underperformers, we've already seen it in clean energy, you've seen it in healthcare companies, you've seen it in defense-related companies, and that's for a couple of reasons. One, there's the tariff uncertainty, there's the immigration policy uncertainty, but more importantly, there's who is going to be appointed to certain cabinet positions. And that's causing uncertainty around healthcare and defense as there's a little more fiscal stimulus restraint. So our portfolio adjusted very quickly to that. We do need to keep in mind, though, there is a lot of focus on a president. The most important thing and what drives stock markets ultimately is corporate profits and earnings. And you've seen a very healthy third quarter earnings season. And if you look at 2025, you're actually starting to see earnings acceleration. And where we're going to drive our portfolio in 2025 is not going to be president and the policies of the president. It's going to be where are there shifts in earnings and where are we seeing acceleration of earnings and earnings growth.
Got it.
And that is really going to be the key to the portfolio.
Got it. 所以听完刚才 Justin 的说明之后呢，我想大家都知道，新政府上任之后呢，短期之内也许有一些产业会是赢家，有一些产业会是输家。但是呢，投资我们毕竟还是要看未来企业的盈余成长前景。那刚才 Justin 有提到说，2025年呢，企业的盈余渴望加速增长。所以，身为投资组合经理人，我们要保持灵活弹性，要去找到具有获利能力的企业，这才是我们最好的一个投资选择。 So in the short term, we may have winners and losers, but in the long run, we have to go back to the basics. That is the corporate profitability, and that will determine the positioning of our portfolio, right?
Correct.
Great, thank you. The Fed has started this easing cycle in September, right? So looking ahead to 2025, will the Fed continue to cut rates? And which asset classes are likely to benefit? And what are the industries, for example, the industries that you prefer in the previous question? Will they continue to benefit because of the Fed cutting interest rates?
Yeah, so that's a great question as far as the Fed. When we think about the market right now, the market is about a coin flip or 50-50 of whether there's a Fed cut in the month of December. But if we look at from now until 2025, the market is roughly anticipating about 100 basis points of Fed cuts, and that kind of makes sense. There's discussion of what is the neutral rate for the market, and if we kind of think about Fed policy, if we get to this 3 to 3.5% range over the long term, that's probably the right rate for the short-term market based on what we see right now. When we think about how are we going to adjust the portfolio because of the Fed rate cut, remember the Fed is cutting rates because the reasons that they rose interest rates as far as inflation being high, unemployment coming down, and job growth being excessive, we're now normalizing all of that. Inflation is getting back to normal levels. Employment is back to normal levels. So the Fed does not need to be that restrictive anymore. So we're really normalizing Fed policy also. As far as, again, what changes to the portfolio, it's not going to be changes to the portfolio because the Fed is cutting rates. In fact, if you look at some companies or sectors that should benefit from rate cuts like REITs or utilities, they did have short-term positive movements higher, but it wasn't sustained because the long end of the yield curve moved higher with the presidential change or the presidential election. So ultimately, what's going to drive changes to our portfolio will be the fundamentals. And what we're really monitoring right now is companies that underperformed in 2023 and 24 because they had deteriorating earnings fundamentals. Well, we're beginning to see a change at the margin of those companies. So if you begin to see small and mid-cap companies outperform, it's going to be because of their earnings growth acceleration and not because of Fed policy and not because of who is president.
I see. 所以呢，很明显的，在投资市场的时候呢，也许呢，这个货币政策的转向会带来一些短期的利多，但是长期而言，我们还是要回归企业的基本面。也许接下来这段时间呢，我们会持续看到像是这个通膨正常化，还有这个利率环境跟劳动市场的正常化。接下来呢，联准会应该还有降息的空间，但是回到投资面，我们还是要去看企业的获利成长，来去决定我们的投资方向。In addition to the Fed, we know that ECB, Bank of England, New Zealand, and also some Asian countries such as Thailand and South Korea, they're also cutting interest rates. Does that mean that global growth is slowing down? If that's the case, is it going to be a headwind for risk assets? And do you still see attractive opportunities and also upside in the equity market?
If you look at the U.S. markets, and that's income and growth is a U.S.-focused market. So we are seeing a slowdown in the GDP of the U.S., but that should be expected. The U.S. has been growing above trend, and we really anticipate a normalization of that trend, which is somewhere between 1.5% and 2.5%. So yes, we anticipate the U.S. markets to slow from a GDP perspective. I think when we think about, does that mean the markets will underperform or equity markets will be negative, we need to think that long term that the equity markets have an annualized return of 8 to 9%. So if you have periods where you're significantly above that, it does not mean that the market needs to go down. It just means that the market can't sustain at those high level of returns like we've had in 2023 and 2024. On the other side of that, we need to keep in mind that the income and growth portfolio invests in 3 different asset classes: U.S. equities, U.S. convertible bonds, and U.S. high yield. And when we think about asset classes that have underperformed relative to the broad markets recently, the convertible bond market has done that. So when we think about opportunities for income and growth, many people just focus on the broad equity markets and the return possibility of the equity markets, but we're very positive on U.S. convertible bonds. We are very positive on the U.S. convertible bond market, and we're also positive on the U.S. high yield market because you have solid yield potential with a high yield market, and you also have improving corporate profits and pretty low default rates. So that backdrop is very constructive for parts of the income and growth portfolio.
I see. So overall, yes, maybe the U.S. growth is slowing down, but overall the market is still quite solid and should be supportive for the performance of those three asset classes you mentioned.
Yes, that's true. And the other thing to keep in mind is that you can have different drivers of the equity market going forward. The last couple of years have been driven by some very large mega cap names that many people are familiar with, but we can have mid cap and small cap companies start driving some outperformance going forward. So even though the market might not need to be up 10 to 15%, you can have plenty of mid cap and smaller cap companies that can have very solid returns.
I see. 好，那么所以说呢，如同刚才我们经理人所提到的，未来呢，尽管美国经济成长会放缓，但是呢，这只是一个正常化的过程。我们还是可以在我们投资的几个资产类别当中，像是美国可转债、美国非投资级债，甚至呢，像之前呢涨幅比较落后的中小型股身上，持续找到投资回报的。Allianz Income and Growth Fund is the most popular fund here in Taiwan, and it has, as I said, consistently ranking among the most viewed funds on our platform. So my question is, today this fund has an AUM over 1 trillion Taiwan dollars. That's amazing.
Wow.
So with such large asset under your management, how do you do that? How do you manage the fund?
Yeah, I think it's no different than managing any other fund. I mean, the goal of the fund is to identify companies that we think can meet or exceed expectations and outperform. The thing that's so unique to the income and growth portfolio that many clients might not know is that it's one team that is responsible for all three of the asset classes. So once we've identified a company, then we determine which asset class gives the client the most favorable upside participation and downside protection. So yes, the fund is a large fund, but the investment style, the investment process is no different whether it's a small fund or a large fund. And we do think the way we manage the fund is extremely unique for any multi-asset strategy out there.
所以呢，如同刚才我们经理人所提到的，今天不管我们基金的规模是大是小，我们的目标很简单，就是要实现客户对我们的期待跟目标。而且呢，在多重资产基金当中，我们所投资的这3个资产类别是非常独特的，因此呢，我们有信心能够持续的满足客户对我们的期待。Your fund invests 1/3 in equities, 1/3 in U.S. high yield, and also 1/3 in U.S. convertible bonds.
Yep.
So specifically for the equity sleeve, you tactically employ a covered call strategy.
Yep.
Can you explain to us your approach on that covered call strategy, and how does that differ from other asset managers? Maybe you can give us some examples.
So when we think about the income and growth portfolio, another way to add or enhance income is through the covered call strategy. When we think about the covered call strategy, typically we write options that are 8 to 10% out of the money, and we're looking for 8 to 10% annualized yield. We only write covered calls on individual equity positions, and we actively manage this position. The reason we do that is we do not like to cap upside in this portfolio. So if there's change of information or new news that can cause the stock price of that individual company to move significantly higher, then we'll buy back the option, we'll take a loss on that, and then we'll continue to monitor the stock to go higher. Where that's different from other funds out there is other funds that we look at, they don't actively manage that option strategy. So it's very unique to the income and growth portfolio is how we manage actively that option overlay.
Yeah. 在我们安联收益成长基金，我们使用掩护性买权是以持有现股作为基础来去进行使用的，而且呢，我们的目标是采取主动式的管理，为投资人创造收益，同时又能够掌握股市的上档空间。这个跟其他人采取被动的方式来去管理这个掩护性买权的策略是很不一样的。When would be an ideal time for investors to invest in this income and growth fund? And for those who already invest in this fund, should they stay invested or should they take profits regularly?
Yeah. So the question is when is a great time to invest in income and growth, and should you take profits on the portfolio? So the answer is this is a portfolio that is designed to give you U.S. equity exposure. So we think this is a portfolio that should always be invested. It is not a portfolio that we talk about why now, or there's some unique driver of it. But when we think about today's market, we do think there is one very unique driver of why clients should increase their holding in the income and growth portfolio, and that's really because of the convertible bond asset class. When we think of the convertible bond asset class, typically convertibles capture roughly 60 to 80% of the upside and roughly 50% or less of the downside. If we look at the last 3 years, the convertible bond market has not captured that upside of the equity markets. However, more recently, the convertible bond market has begun to outperform equities. So if we think about the asset class that could drive upside relative to the equity markets, especially the U.S. equity markets, that convertible bond asset class is something that we'll be talking about why now. The other thing for convertible bonds that are very topical right now is new issuance. Even though the Federal Reserve is cutting interest rates, we've seen the long end of interest rates move higher. So when we think about a company's ability to refinance in today's market at lower interest costs than they did in 2020 and 21, the only asset class where they can lower their interest expense will be through convertible bonds. So we anticipate that new issuance will pick up dramatically over the coming months and years in the convertible bond asset class. That will be a unique opportunity set for income and growth.
我们安联收益成长基金呢，它其实是值得大家长期持有的一个投资部位。除此之外呢，我们经理人也提到说，现在更是应该要增持我们基金的好时机，因为现在可转债开始表现领先，而且未来可转债的发行量会增加，并且为我们造就一个更好的进场时机点。Taiwan investors have a strong preference for income.
Yes.
So could you share with us the income distribution approach of our income and growth fund? And looking ahead to 2025, what are the expected sources of income for distribution? And what is the projected distribution level for the fund?
Yep. When we think about the goals of income and growth, there's really 3 goals. One is consistent monthly income. 2 is the ability to participate on the upside and protect on the downside of the equity markets. And 3, to grow NAV over time. So when we think about the long-term distribution goals, it's really driven by what our belief of is the return of the underlying asset classes. If you look at high yield since inception, it's roughly been coupon-like return, or roughly 7%. And when you think about the convertible bond market and the equity market, you've had returns north of 9%. So when we think about the right distribution level, as long as it's somewhere between the long-term return profile of the asset classes, like somewhere between 7 and 9%, then that's probably the right distribution level.
我们安联收益成长基金呢有7大的配息来源，那当然同时间我们经理人也会持续的去冲高我们的总回报，为投资人呢实现一个很好的一个配息水准哦。Thank you, Justin, for answering all the questions. Yep. And once again, thank you for taking the time to join today's interview. So today, FundRich also prepared some tokens of appreciation for you. So let me show you. Here's the first one. All right. This is a FundRich branded T-shirt for you. There's a cute rooster over there.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you so much, FundRich. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and also this tote bag, as you can see, another rooster here.
This is great. Thank you.
Yep. Hopefully you will carry that to work every day. All right, and finally, this is the most important one. Okay, so we have prepared a very elegant set of cups for you. And you know who designed that?
No, I don't.
These cups are designed by the famous court painter Giuseppe Castiglione, who was a court painter from the Qing dynasty, and his artwork is now on exhibition in the National Palace Museum here in Taipei. So as you can see, there are 4 different types of flowers, right? All right, the first one is peony, which represent wealth and good fortune. And the second one is lily. It symbolizes smooth success in all endeavors. And the third one, Pioneer, which is another kind of peony, is a symbol of beauty. And the last one, Coxcomb, which conveys wishes for promotion and recognition.
Wow.
We hope that these blessings will bring prosperity, health, and happiness to you, your family, and your career.
Well, these are great. Thank you again for having me, and thank you, Funrich, for all your support and investments.
Well, we hope you like it.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Well, until next time. 好，那最后呢，再次感谢各位今天线上的收看。那么今天呢，我们的热门基金会客室也在这边告一个段落了。
拜拜。
投资一定有风险，基金投资有赚有赔，申购前应详阅公开说明书。